Hey guys, it's me Delta1 here with AspecAirsoft, and today I'm going to be doing a review of a gearbox. This is a little bit different than the reviews that I normally do, instead of a gun and such other things. So basically, I'm excited about this because I use one of these personally, and I think this is the best drop-in version 3 gearbox that you can buy on the market as of right now, because really it's the only 8mm gearbox drop-in that is complete, that is affordable, and that you can get in the United States right now. So moving on, let's review kind of the boxish thingy. First, it's very flashy. I mean, it's lightning bolts striking out everywhere. It's got the cool lightning stuff on it, and on the back you have the inside of a version 2, which is a little bit different than what you would expect to see. But it explains how it works, and the inside it's kind of got like a see-through thing, so it's kind of unique. So most people who buy these will probably be getting the version 2 because, well, as much as I hate to admit it, M4s sell more than AKs. But I hope to change that. Moving on. So let's see what it comes with. When you open it up, you will see that it comes with a M120 spring, and I must say, this is one heck of an M120 spring. I had a customer who had his M4 at his house. He went on a vacation and left his spring locked all the way back. His piston was locked all the way back, and this spring was in it for a month. Normally you'll lose all of your spring tension, and I went to chrono it before I was going to install a new spring, and it was right at 400 FPS. So this is one heck of a good spring. I really recommend SRC springs because they don't lose their tension. So I like the SRC springs. So once you get your spring out, the gearbox, you have to grab it out. They've really got it in there tight, so it's almost, you almost have to take apart the entire packaging to get the whole gearbox out. So that's what it'll look like once you get it out of the box. It's stapled in with some plastic around it, so basically that's how it's inside of that box. So as you can see, it's stapled, all that good stuff. So here it is outside the box, guys. Now I'm just going to open it up and tell you about it from there on out, so you can see clearly more about what I'm talking about. So in the next scene, you'll see what I'm talking about. So once you got it open, we're going to start with the spring, and we're going to work our way to the piston, cylinder, cylinder head, the tappet plate, then the gears, trigger mechanism, and all that. But first, I'm going to show you, here's the 8mm bearings. Very nice. There's the outside, inside view. Just thought I'd show you. Didn't come too over-greased, and it's actually high-quality grease. It's not actually nasty grease, but I would still personally re-grease it with my own grease. Now, it comes with a steel. The back of this is steel. Right here is steel. Some ball bearings, which is good for your spring so it doesn't stay tense and get caught on anything. It gives it maneuverability, so it's kind of like, basically it's kind of like a free-floating system in a way. It just basically prevents it from getting caught on something and jamming up your gearbox. But this shaft right here is a aluminum, and it's not as strong as a steel. I would prefer a steel, but this won't break at all, so I wouldn't even think to worry about it. But I prefer steel just because, well, when I build a gearbox, I always go for, you know, over the top. Everything's got to be steel. But to be honest, this will do fine, and it'll handle anything you throw at it. Now for the spring. SRC, I think, makes some of the best springs, and here's why. My friend had an M4, and it was locked back all the way. The piston was all the way back on an M120, and I went to chrono it right before I did the spring change. Now, normally when it's locked back for a month, you'll lose all spring tension, and you will lose a lot of FPS. When normally people do that just to lose a few FPS, they lock it back overnight to lose some FPS. I don't recommend doing that because it's unreliable, and it doesn't give you consistent, you know, if you lock it back for X amount of time, you lose this much FPS. It's not consistent. So his was locked back for about a month, and I went to go chrono it. 405, 411, 403, 395, 400 for a SRC M120 spring. So this is a 300 FPS spring, so you won't lose any spring tension on these, which is great. So if you can't find a garter, go buy an SRC spring. Now for the piston. Now I have modified this piston beforehand because this is a gearbox that my buddy on my team bought, and I was doing some work on it and I was reviewing it at the same time. Now it will have this tooth on it. It was not, this has already been pre-removed, and I recommend removing the last tooth on any piston because it prevents pre-engagement, and sometimes even recommend removing half of the second tooth to prevent pre-engagement. Now let's move on. That's the only thing I really do not like about this piston, is that I have to remove it, but it's not really a con. It's a great piston. Reason being, I've had this piston in my personal RPK and it works fantastic. It's a durable piston. I've fired close to 75,000 rounds on it. There's next to no wear on it, and it's a great piston. It's a polycarb. It is quite, it's not heavy, but it's not a super lightweight piston, but it is durable. It's not a flexible piston, but I mean, it's durable. It's going to last you. I would compare this to a GMP piston. This is actually, personally in my opinion, I like these a little bit better. But I'm not too big of a fan on GMP parts. But these are not as easy to get a hold of, so, and another thing, they don't mesh completely right with a standard gear. If you take any other gear set besides an SRC gear set, they don't match properly, and they leave a small gap in between the gear set and the piston teeth. So unless you have an SRC gear set, the teeth on here are a little too short. So you have to have an SRC gear set. But SRC gear sets are phenomenal. I love my SRC gear sets. They're great. I've shot close to 100,000 rounds on them with no wear at all on them. They look brand new. So that's the only gripe I have about this piston. Other than that, it's fantastic. Now for the piston head. It's got a double seal, which I will zoom in and show you. As you can see right there, there's two O-rings. There's a really small O-ring right there, an O-ring for the piston head. It's a good seal. It's a good design. I like it. And overall, it's a really good aluminum piston head. When you get down to it, the ports on it are great. I think it's a great aluminum piston head. I really don't see a need to upgrade. I had mine in my Gen 3. I upgraded it to a Sistema, but that's just because I spew out so much rounds, and, well, honestly, I don't see a need. I honestly think that this is fine the way it is, and I think it's pretty good. I really don't see a need to, because it has ball bearings inside to, again, for the spring tension to not get locked up on anything, and just to let the spring rotate freely. So it's basically, it's a solid proof design for the spring and the way it's attached to the piston. So, I mean, this is a really good piston and piston head in my opinion. So, let's get further on into the gearbox. Now for the cylinder and the cylinder head. You have a non-ported cylinder, which means it's for longer barreled, not such as your M4s, such as a 500mm and up. So, yeah. Now for the cylinder head. I do not like this buffer. I wish it came with a better buffer, but it does have the double O-ring, so it allows for better compression, and it is aluminum. So I'm glad they didn't throw in a polycarb, because I have seen companies throw in polycarb cylinder heads when they have aluminum piston heads. So I'm glad SRC didn't do that. So let's get on further into this gearbox. Now for the air nozzle and the tappet plate. Nothing special here. They're polycarb, and they do the job. And frankly, I don't have anything to really say about it. It's just standard. Now for the gears. Now, as I said earlier, the green piston only matches up with SRC gears. That does not mean other pistons won't match up with them. I've tested numerous pistons. I've tested an azimuth and other ones. They match up fine. Now, these gears are great. I use them personally in 2 RPKs. I've ran thousands and thousands upon thousands of rounds, no wear. They work great. They are fantastic. They're precision cut. They're CNC steel. And one of my favorite parts is, look how much work it took for and it's still not popping out, my and our reversal latch does not pop out. I love that, because when you put a gearbox back together, this is the first thing that will want to disagree with you and not want to go back into place. So that is a great thing, because they're such a pain in the butt to work with, and they're normally like, no, I don't want to work with you, and I'm just going to pop out and make life complicated. So this gear set has been shimped pretty well. It's not over greased too bad, and I like it. I personally think these are great. So they're with the 8mm bearings, and they run great. I personally love it. So now for the trigger mechanism. I ran mine for 5 minutes straight without a fuse on a 11-1 LiPo, and I melted my trigger mechanism. There's the contacts. I melted them in further into the actual mechanism, and they still work great. I haven't burnt out my contacts. I fired close to 100,000 rounds. They still work fine, and the gearbox still runs like a champ. This gearbox is ridiculous. The only thing I can really tell you that I would replace is my wiring, and the wiring is still fine. I would still, I mean, the wiring on it's fine, but I always replace the wiring on mine just because I replace wiring on everything. Just like I re-grease and re-shim everything as a technician that I am. Now for the final conclusion. Ball bearing spring guide, awesome. Good piston with aluminum piston head with ball bearings for good spring, less spring tension and increases reliability. Non-ported piston head with an OK buffer on your cylinder head with double seal for better compression, which is good. Polycarb tappet plate, which has lasted me over 75,000 rounds and still works like a champ, which is good. Came installed with a 300 FPS spring. It's kind of lame. I wish it came installed with the M120, but it doesn't. 8mm bearings, which is great for increased reliability. A CNC gear set, which is awesome. Okay wiring, a good trigger housing, and a great gearbox shell. This is a great gearbox to buy, and I recommend it for anyone who's looking to upgrade an AK. This is an affordable drop-in gearbox. The only thing I wish they did is they had an option to get one with 300 FPS and a 400 FPS, and it came with a motor mount and a motor. Other than that, this gearbox is perfect in my opinion. I love this gearbox. I recommend it to anyone who's looking to get it. You can just drop it in. It's a great gearbox. And if you're looking to buy this, you can get it off of AspecAirsoft.com, a link in the description. And guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.